Very good afternoon to you. Let's get into the uncensored debate, and it has to do with the situation that we find ourselves in as a country. So the question is, are we experiencing a political insurgency, or this is purely an element of criminality that is taking advantage of the situation or the anger of those who say they are angry about the imprisonment of the former President Jacob Zuma? It's time for that debate now. Let me introduce my panelists to you. And they are Professor Mary de Haas. She is from the Violence Monitor. Yusuf Abramjee, anti-crime activist. And we also have Bantu Holomisa, leader of the United Democratic Movement. Professor Jane Duncan is with the University of Johannesburg's Journalism Department. Velenkosini Hlabisa, that's the leader of the Inkatha Freedom Party. And last but not least, Nhlakanipho Ntombela is the spokesperson of the African National Congress in the KwaZulu-Natal province. To all of you, thank you very much for joining us. Let me start with you, Professor Duncan. And the question I've put out there is whether or not the country is perhaps experiencing some political insurgency, or this is purely an element of criminality. That question is going to go for all my guests. Let's start with you.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your viewers. I think that we are seeing an element of insurgency, but I think we're also seeing an element of criminality as well. It's not either or. I wouldn't counterpose the two. I think we are seeing elements of insurgency. If we understand insurgency to be a violent armed rebellion with a paramilitary element that hasn't quite escalated to the level of a revolution, but that is unlawful and that is against a democratically constituted state and democratic society. So I think to that extent we are seeing disturbing elements of insurgency, but I also think that the pro-Zuma elements that seem to be responsible for these attacks are stoking criminality. And I think the reason why they're doing this is they want to create the look and feel of ungovernability in the country and of instability. I think they want to create an impression of a sitting president that is incapable of governing and keeping the country stable.
Sure.
And I worry that things could not stop here. I think that if this escalates to a political level, so in other words, if we have these elements mobilizing along the fault lines of our society into a political movement, then I think we could have even more problems than we're experiencing at the moment.
Mr. Ntombela, let's come to you. Professor Duncan says it's a combination of political insurgency and the element of criminality. Where do you stand as the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal?
Thanks, Xoli. Good evening to all panelists and the viewers at home. As an ANC, we believe that there is no insurgency. There are elements of criminality. If you would have observed instances in the past few days, this coordinated looting, sporadic in some areas, and we can count these few pockets of the province. Even in Ethekwini, we can count these few areas. It will be around pockets, around Nazareth, Pinetown. It will be around the Inanda area. It will be around the Moe River, depending of trucks. Hence, as the ANC or the FEMBU, these are the sporadic elements of people who are exploiting the grievance the general populace, some within the population, is having around the incarceration of the former president. So there is no uprising in the country, but it's a criminal element which we think that the police must rein on with authority and clamp it down.
Yusuf Abramjee, you are an anti-crime activist. Where do you stand on this question? Political insurgency or pure criminality?
Fellow panelists, my view is that 80% or so of what we are seeing is pure criminality leading up to looting and damaging of property. Perhaps 20% could be attributed, in my view, to the political situation that we are now seeing. Having said that, I mean, it takes two cabinet ministers, Fikile Mbalula and Tito Mboweni, to say it's pure criminality, it's looting. But what I find very strange is that this violence started about 2 days ago. It's now escalating. We are seeing it in many areas in and around Johannesburg. The police clearly cannot cope. I'm getting calls from across South Africa. People are worried. Their shops are being looted. We've seen a security guard being shot dead in Alexandra Township. We saw your journalists being attacked. The SABC crew were robbed and mugged in Alexandra Township. This is lawlessness. We are told this morning that about 100 million rand damage has been caused in KwaZulu-Natal alone. If I look at the situation as we speak in Alex, in Hillbrow, in Berea, in Jacquestown, in Denver, in Germiston, it's out of control. I think the government is fast asleep. I think the president should have acted long ago. I'm firmly of the view that the police cannot cope. The JMPD in Johannesburg are helping more than what the police can do. I'm told they're running out of rubber bullets, they're running out of stun grenades. We really have a crisis, and I don't know why the president is not moving at speed. And as much as we say that the South African National Defence Force is there to play another role, if the police cannot cope, we are on the brink of anarchy and lawlessness. Yeah. The SANDF should be brought in to back up the police as a matter of urgency.
All right. Yusuf Abramjee, I'm going to jump from you to Professor, to Mary de Haas. She is the violence monitor. And Mary, as I come to you, there are developments in the area of Pinetown. Quickly, give me your thoughts about what is going on here. I know you have to go, that's why I'm jumping to you quickly.
Okay, can I just answer your question? Yes, there's a lot of criminality in this. It always happens with protests, and protests are regular. This is orchestrated. You've only got to look at the incitement, the stuff I've been sent from social media. It's deliberate incitement. I could hear it as I drove along past Cato Crest in Durban today. The political rhetoric, the political incitement, and it's orchestrated. And of course, criminals are jumping on the bandwagon. And just to give you an example, this afternoon they are surrounding the Haas at Hillcrest of Deputy Acting Judge President Zondo. And yeah, so I mean, it's clearly orchestrated. I mean, there's no doubt about it. The best word to describe this is sedition. I mean, the same at Encounter. You know, you are threatening to kill the police. The police are there, which is like signing your own death warrant if things get out of control. Now, the police are there to exercise the authority of the state. And to actually, you know, to threaten to kill them, you are uprising against the state. I mean, to put it very, very, very simplistically, this is the way these people operate. It is, and you start with the taxi industry because that's the way you spread it. Who controls the taxi industry? The Zuma family. The long distance and the local and their security guards. I've been shouting for ages about the need to regulate taxis, to deal with their security company. The guns are everywhere, and they're using the ethnic card, of course. They're trying to whip up sentiment, which is so dangerous.
All right.
Because they're saying, oh, you know, he's being targeted. And of course, I think there was a question about how does this happen. I mean, the basic problem I've seen, and I want to say this very loudly about policing, I have seen a huge improvement in policing in the last year or two. I get my complaints followed up. I've had some really good experiences with detectives, but it's like it's going to take years to sort the problem out. The problems that were allowed during the Zuma presidency and the people he appointed to the police they're just, you know, you don't change a bureaucracy like that full of incompetent people overnight. But the worst of all is intelligence. because the whole intelligence structure was ruined by Zuma. He put his people in, he put the wrong people in. They were there to do political work. And we are sitting now with very few, I know some good people, but they're kind of in the minority. So the intelligence structures, and I see this even with all the stuff I deal with day in, day out about people getting threatened, people getting killed, that there is no proper police intelligence.
All right.
And the national intelligence is just as bad. So that's why you have this situation. And
all right.
guns.
I think you've described this situation very well. Mary de Haas, thank you very much. I know we have to let you go. As I come to you, General Holomisa, we have live shots coming from Pinetown in another part of KZN, and police, we are told, are dealing with young people who are literally looting as we speak. What's your view on this? Is this a political insurgency or pure criminality?
I don't think so. What we are seeing is nothing else but a spillover of the ANC internal faction battles. Domain. The violent protests we are witnessing have been here for many years, where properties and infrastructure had been destroyed, sadly, without consequences. Recently, the leadership of the ANC have been saying it in public that you dare to arrest some of the leaders of the ANC. You dare to arrest our president. But still, you'll find that the police, out of that warning, they didn't come up with a plan to prevent that. Sometimes to apply a proactive strategy is better, and you would save lives of many. These people said, we are going to do this, and they did it, and they said, all right, we are now tomorrow going to be in Johannesburg. They are now in Johannesburg. So where is the leadership? So all I'm saying, whether it's criminality, the criminality has been here for years. Many people have lost their property because of crime, and nobody is charged.
All right. All right. General Holomisa, the
president of the country and the cabinet were approached recently. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Apologies about that, General. We quickly want to just give you a sense of what is going on in KZN. I'm going to come to you shortly, Babu Hlabisa. Let's touch base with our reporter, Tumaole Mhlaudi, who is in Pinetown. Tumaole, describe for us exactly what is going on there. Where is this area in Pinetown, and what exactly is going on?
Hello there, Xoli. Well, it's all happening here. As you can see in these live shots, the stones are raining in, and this is a depot where alcohol is stored, and trucks come and are collected for distribution across the province, the various liquor outlets. And protesters, or those purporting to be protesters, basically barged into the facility and helped themselves to the alcohol. They even set a land grader alight, and the land grader was just clearing some ground just outside the facility. Police have been having their hands full all day. We'll let the shots speak for a bit. They're shooting rubber bullets. Let's see what happens.
And Tumaole, as you show us the action of the police as they try to disperse these crowds, are they saying anything about the incarceration of the former president, or this is now purely about looting?
Well, Xoli, earlier, as we had arrived, as I was preparing to come out into the facility, a group of young men walked past and basically said that this is what happens when you remove Jacob Zuma. Uyenzeni uZuma. And then they walked away from us. And that would basically, although it was not much of a scientific, questionnaire, in terms of the amount of people that I spoke to. It was just those youths. It gives you a sense of what's been happening and what people are feeling here on the ground. And access in and out of this area has also been blockaded by the protesters. They put large rocks on the ground, and police continue to keep a close eye on the situation, but they're saying that they're having their hands full. You can see that the officers here, the SAPS officers, are also being supported by the metro officers from the city of Durban. And so this is a joint operation here because of the intensity of these protests. I've been told that they've been running battles like this happening for the past couple of days. And as we bring these live visuals through to you, police are also saying that they won't back down, and they will bring all those who are involved in criminal activity to the book.
All right, Tumalo Mhlaudi, we're going to talk over your visuals with my panelists. Babhlabisa, before we take a short breather, let's come to you. You've heard the description from our colleague on the ground, Tumalo Mhlaudi, that in the main, these are young people who are perpetrating this. Is this still about the former president, Jacob Zuma's incarceration, or there's basically criminality here taking place?
Xoli, as well as the panelists and the viewers, this is a combination of both criminality, which has been there due to the high rate of unemployment and resentment from our people due to corruption that has deprived them of the opportunities that might have changed their lives. But secondly, this is a strong drive of political insurgency, because on Sunday at Nkandla, a public declaration was made by ANC leaders. I really sympathize with my brother Nhlakanipho Ntombela, because I know he can't go far than what he said. The truth of the matter, the ANC must own this mess. This is their problem. On a broad daylight at Nkandla, they defied the COVID-19 regulations, and they publicly declared that should Zuma be arrested, they will make this country ungovernable. Is exactly what is happening. Where is the president of the country? He cannot carry on speaking through spokesperson. He must come up front and lead and give the marching orders. The ANC leadership in KwaZulu-Natal, they should go down to the ground, meet structures, talk to people in those pocket areas. If they say it is not their leaders, where are their leaders on the ground putting down this fire which discredit the ANC as a ruling party in KwaZulu-Natal? If they don't do that, it will remain that behind the scenes, those ANC leaders who support Zuma are behind the whole of what is happening. Look, the sound clips, voice clip messages are moving around saying tomorrow, shut down, ban everything, loot, attack, and people are identified who must be attacked amongst the leadership of the ANC. Clearly, it's a faction that supports Zuma. And this is very bad. It's going to be breaking down the economy further. It will make things more worse as the unemployment is at this rate. The ANC must own up this problem and publicly at all levels. If they don't do that, we would say this is a problem within the ANC, but it is devastating our society. It is time that ANC must own this problem and take a lead, because it will eventually get out of hand before it becomes an anarchy. The president of the country must take a firm stance against this. In a statement, President said criminality must be met with the full might of the law. The SAPS cannot cope. Something more must be done now.
Mr. Ntombela, Mr. Hlabisa is asking a very pertinent question. Where is the leadership of the ANC? Are you on the ground among these people who are perpetrating this violence?
Let us make this clear, Tony. This is not an ANC program. As your visual will show you, those are individuals looting the stores. The only protests where you would see some ANC people on were protests where people were burning tires on the streets consistently, whether they were in Ladysmith, they were in other areas, whether they're blocking at some point the main road, the highway. There have never been instances where consistently people are looting the shops. We'll see them wearing ANC regalia, shouting ANC slogans. Hence, we are saying that police must play their role in dealing with criminality. Criminals have seen a loophole and they're exploiting the situation. Hence, their focus on shops, on liquor outlets. It tells you a story that these are criminal elements. Hence, my reiteration earlier on, that can't be defined as an insurgency. When there are criminals running amok in some pocket of the province, the authority of the state must be exercised by the police. It can't be blamed on the political situation in the country. They are exploiting that situation.
Professor
it can't
Duncan?
be defined as an insurgency.
Professor Duncan, are you convinced by that argument?
No, I'm not convinced by that argument. I think that this is very much about ANC factional battles spilling out onto the streets of the country. And I'm also not convinced by the argument that there aren't elements of insurgency in what is happening. And I think we also need to bring the bigger picture to the fore as well. And the bigger picture is that we are seeing indications of what is being called state recapture or state capture 2.0. Where those elements of state capture that were aligned to the former president are attempting to reassert their control over state institutions that they, to an extent, have lost control of. I think that the State Security Agency, given the attempts at the cleanup that's taking place there, the taps to an extent have been turned off there. So it stands to reason that if taps are being turned off there in terms of access to finances, there will be a struggle to keep the taps open in the Crime Intelligence Division of SAPS. And I think that one of the reasons why we're seeing such significant intelligence failures taking place in relation to what's happening at the moment is that our agencies have been factionalized. The factions that we've seen occurring in the ruling party have translated into factions within our intelligence agencies. And I think that so I think that is part of the bigger picture, that there's a fight back, and this is an element within it. But I think also it's important for us to ask the question, where is crime intelligence, particularly in all of this? Because it's crime intelligence that should be providing the intelligence that's necessary to make proper interventions, precisely because these attacks are organized, they're coordinated, they're highly coordinated. And crime intelligence seems to be sleeping on the job. So, for instance, it didn't take much to anticipate that Moy River would become a target, the trucks there. Why do we have to wait for in the region of 30 trucks to be burnt at Moy River for some kind of intervention to be made? This is fundamentally what is needed is not a military intervention. You know, I've got every sympathy for the fact that the police are feeling under tremendous pressure and are running out of resources. But I think fundamentally, at its heart, there needs to be a political intervention, because our political leaders are pretty invisible in all of this, and an intelligence intervention.
All right.
And the intervention needs to track who is responsible for stoking the violence, for organizing all of this, and to identify those leaders of this nascent insurgency. And that is where they appear to be failing. And the failure is hardly surprising, because we find time and again, this is a constant problem in our intelligence agencies, that they are at their weakest when they deal with inter-ANC factional battles. when there's instability that's caused by these factional battles, somehow we start to get significant intelligence failures and intelligence blind spots developing. And I think that this is what's playing itself out now at the moment.
Yeah. Professor Duncan, you've hit the nail on the head. I'm going to go to General Holomisa in a moment, but it looks like the situation on the ground in Pinetown is really getting intense. Let's see if my colleague Dumalo Mhlaudi is able to hear. Dumalo, what is going on there? The police, it looks like their hands are full here.
Well, the police certainly have more than their hands full. We see that the protesters have been refusing to basically be swept away. Let me move away. The police are trying desperately to protect this facility. What happened is that the protesters had torn down the fence, and that's how they got access. And the stones continue to rain in. Xoli.
Well, you need to be safe, Dumalo, for you to be able to talk to us. Otherwise, you're putting your own life in danger.
Xoli, I don't know if you can hear me. We've just taken a position behind the wall here at this depot. And what's been happening is that the police have really had their hands full, trying to contain. First, they tried to end this protest, end the protest by firing rubber bullets. But what has since happened is that the protesters seem to have increased in number, and they are just hurling this facility with stones. Police are firing right back with rubber bullets. Let's just see what happens here, Xoli.
All right, Dumalo Mhlaudi, thank you very much for the moment. Let's allow you to catch your breath, but also importantly, be in a safe area. General Holomisa, let's bring you in. You looked quite irritated as we continue to play these visuals for the viewers. You are very incensed about this because you've suggested that all along the leadership in the country should have anticipated this. And Professor Duncan speaks about crime intelligence that basically has been caught napping. Your counterpart, Mr. Hlabisa, says, where's the president? Well, incidentally, he's addressing tonight. Do you think he needs to address this issue head on? This is unavoidable.
Well, we expect him to say something about this issue, but I don't expect much because Zikalala he spoke to him a few days ago. Zikalala is the premier of that province and said, please, I need assistance in the case of KwaZulu-Natal. Don't worry about the reference to pardon, but he is there, and I'm sure he could see that another faction, because this thing is factionalism, it's about factionalism at the end of the day. We could see that there are people who are carrying the flag of the ANC, who are leading these protests. So I'm sure Zikalala might have wanted the president to take this matter up and discuss it with his colleagues, especially the cabinet, and say, because to refer this matter all the time to the NEC and wait for another NEC, President Cyril Ramaphosa has been given a mandate to run the country. If he was given a security assessment on the ground by the security cluster, maybe we would be speaking a different language today.
All right.
I hope you will address on this.
Yusuf Abramjee, I'm going to come to you shortly after this breather, because how I want to introduce you is with a particular tweet from the daughter of the former president. And you have your ear on the ground as far as crime matters are concerned. We're going to continue this conversation in a moment. Watching the uncensored debate, and I have panelists who are discussing the situation that is holding on the ground right now, looting, wholesale looting, primarily by young people. And the understanding is that they're doing this in the name of wanting to free the incarcerated former President Jacob Zuma. Yusuf Abramjee, I want to come to you, but before that, I just want to read this tweet to you. It was tweeted by the daughter, Dudu Zuma Sambudla. That's the daughter of the former President Jacob Zuma, and she speaks in isiZulu. I'll try and translate in English in a moment. She says, "Ekabe kungabanjani uma singathi qi emahovisi kamphathi wesifundazwe saKwaZulu Natal." And then she has the word amandla with the fists going up, and then the hashtag is free Jacob Zuma. Basically, what she's saying there, Yusuf Abramjee, is how would it be if we actually could visit the office of the Premier of KwaZulu Natal? This is just one of the tweets that she put out. This one was put out, I think it was about 2 days ago, if I'm not mistaken. There have been other tweets where she tweets about the trucks that were burning on the N3. I seem to remember a time, Yusuf, when it was said during the COVID pandemic that anyone who tweets misinformation will be jailed. In this instance, I want to think that this is much worse than misinformation. This is someone who is fanning the flames, but doing so digitally. Do we have any leg to stand on or any measures to try and take action against actions such as these? Or is Dudu Zuma Sambudla free to do what she's doing because the internet is not regulated as such?
Well, Kwali, I think first of all it must be said that on the issue of poor policing, this is a good example of how useless our South African police service can be. The daughter of the former president is not the only one that has been inciting violence. We've seen other family members, we've seen his supporters publicly saying, go out and do this. They are inciting violence. Why have they not been arrested and charged? I can't understand why the cops are scared. Professor Jane is absolutely right when she says crime intelligence again has been found sleeping. But let's confront the brutal facts. The supporters of Jacob Zuma for days now have been threatening to go and protest. We've been hearing rumors of violence for the past few days. The police were again found napping. They were fast asleep. We saw yesterday they were already threatening that we're coming to Johannesburg. There was rumors of a convoy leaving KwaZulu-Natal up to Johannesburg. Last night when the violence broke out, the police were taken off guard. What we are seeing today, and as we speak in many parts of Johannesburg, there are not enough cops on duty. So I think we are dealing here with poor policing. The ANC leaders, in my view, are again found napping. They don't have their ears right on the ground. They don't know what's happening. While the president of South Africa is tweeting about Wimbledon, I can't understand why he's waiting so long to address the nation. He should have yesterday already, in addition to the statement he should call for calm, make sure that the police resources are beefed up. And again, I know we're going to have this debate about the South African National Defence Force. We are seeing property being burned. We are seeing hundreds of millions of rands of damage. If the police cannot cope, I can't understand why the South African National Defence Force cannot be brought in as a backup to the police. Why can't we even have a state of emergency in some of the affected areas? People are living in fear. The police, we are told earlier, and your reporter, Polly, backed it up, live ammunition is being used. My sources say to me in the Johannesburg CBD in Alex, the cops and the security guards were shot with live ammunition. And many of the cops are simply retreating. They are pulling back. They are scared because we know what happened at Marikana. So I think we are dealing here with a very, very volatile situation. If the government cannot take control immediately, this can spill over into major chaos. So I think the president will have to will address this issue this evening in addition to the COVID-19 pandemic issue because we are dealing here with a serious issue that's causing our country massive damage. And I'm sorry to say to you, the rumors for tomorrow are going to be true, which we are already hearing. We are going to see more chaos and more violence tomorrow, and we cannot afford that.
Mr. Ntombela, let's come to you. You've seen the tweets of the daughter of the former president. Is she inciting violence, in your view?
So there are a number of individuals who are inciting violence. It's not only her. There are a number, whether they are posting on social media, whether they are circulating messages, whether they are circulating SMS messages. It's something we have, as an ANC, have informed the police on timelessly. Hence, the activities happening right now What is being planned in Ladysmith tomorrow across the province as the former president is appearing in the constitutional court. We've alerted the police to say, do your work, proactively plan to prevent this activity.
All right, Mr. Duncan.
ANC, there is how much you can do.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but because of time, I need to get this from you very clearly. If Duduzile Zuma Sambudla is inciting violence, what needs to happen through her tweets?
The law enforcement agencies have got to exercise their responsibility. So why must they ask permission from the ANC? They don't need that. You are the police, you must enforce the law. If someone is inciting violence, if someone is violating the law, if someone is looting, as they are doing here, they must exercise their authority proactively and reactively. That's their duty. That's what they are assigned to do.
Professor Duncan, your final thoughts. You are very clear that the military is not needed, but the situation as it unfolds on the ground, it looks like police are overwhelmed. Are you steadfast on that point?
Yes, I think we have to look at how the SANDF performed during the hard lockdown. And the people who are either killed or injured by SANDF, because they are trained for maximum force, not minimum force. And the situation is so volatile at the moment that we could land up stoking even more violence and unrest in the country. We could land up pouring oil on the fire. As far as I'm concerned, there's a very simple intervention that needs to be made, difficult but simple, and that is that the leaders of the unrest need to be identified and they need to be arrested. You cut the problem off at its head by doing that. We could look at the tweets, the insightful tweets, but there we need to be very careful because they need to incite to imminent violence. That's the constitutional test. And I think that we may end up expending unnecessary energy. The main intervention that needs to happen is the leaders need to be identified through an intelligence-led approach. They need to be arrested.
Mabhlabisa, your turn in less than a minute. What needs to happen now?
Yeah, but you forget me in your second turn, Xoli. But nevertheless, the president of the country must take a lead and give marching orders. Tough stance must be taken against the leaders of these protests. The ANC in KwaZulu-Natal must own the problem. Even the looting originates from unemployment, which is a result of state resources looted by the ANC leaders, as we learn in the Zondo Commission. So they must own that. The leadership of the ANC, which was at Nkandla, must be held responsible of what is happening. I will agree with the daughter of Babu Zuma. It would be better if these protests are taken to ANC offices in Durban and Luthuli House, not blocking the roads, creating disturbances in the normal life, as well as on emergency vehicles like ambulances, which had nothing to do with this. The ANC must be made accountable.
Thank you very much, Mabhlabisa, and I do apologize indeed if I did jump you. So thanks for pointing that out. Mr. Holomisa, you get to have the last word. You seem to laugh at the prospect of protesters taking this to the office of the Premier in KwaZulu-Natal.
Xoli, I think on a serious note, the president should get a briefing directly from the commander of the army, the commissioner of police, the head of national intelligence, and they must brief him as a commander-in-chief. And only he could decide whether there is a need to reinforce the police. But firstly, he must get a clear-cut intelligence, pure intelligence, not propaganda.
Thank you very much, all of my panelists, for your time. And indeed, it has been quite a volatile situation on the ground. All of my panelists, thanks indeed for your time. I cannot mention you by name because of time constraints, but thank you for your participation. That's how